Title: This presentation examines India's potential emergence as a great power in the 21st century within the evolving global strategic environment. In international relations theory, great power status is determined by a combination of material capacity, institutional influence, and the ability to shape international norms and strategic outcomes. Historically, great powers possesses three primary characteristics: sustained economic growth, advanced military capability, and geopolitical influence extending beyond regional boundaries. India represents a particularly significant case because it combines demographic scale, geopolitical leverage, and institutional continuity within a rapid transforming global system. Following the end of the Cold War, global power distribution began shifting towards Asia. As a result, emerging states with large populations and expanding economies gained increasing strategic relevance. India's long-term trajectory suggests gradual transformation rather than rapid dominance. Understanding the constraints and opportunities shaping this trajectory provides insight into future global balance of power dynamics. Introduction: The purpose of this analysis is to evaluate whether India possesses the structural conditions necessary to become a major global power in the 21st century. This evaluation is based on three key analytical variables. First, geopolitical positioning, which determines how geography influences strategic opportunity and vulnerability. Second, military capability, which determines a state's ability to defend national interests and project influence beyond its borders. Third, economic development, which provides the material foundation necessary to sustain technological innovation, military modernization, and institutional influence. The end of the Cold War fundamentally altered the structure of international relations. The collapse of the Soviet Union removed bipolar constraints, allowing regional actors to pursue independent strategic trajectories. India initiated economic reforms in the early 1990s, shifting away from centralized economic policies towards market-oriented development. These reforms improved integration into global markets and increased long-term potential. The combination of economic reform, demographic scale, and geopolitical positioning created structural conditions that support India's potential rise within the global hierarchy. Executive overview: India's strategic relevance is strongly influenced by geographic location. Positioned between the Middle East, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Indo-Pacific maritime system, India occupies a central node within global trade networks. Major sea lanes passing through the Indian Ocean connect energy suppliers in the Middle East with major manufacturing economies in East Asia. Control or influence over these routes provides significant strategic advantage. India also participates in numerous international organizations, including economic and security reforms. Participating in such multilateral institutions allows states to influence rulemaking processes that shape global governance structure. India's diplomatic engagement reflects increasing ambition to shape international policy outcomes. As global economic growth increasingly shifts towards Asia, India's relative importance within the international system is expected to increase. Strategic competition among major powers further increases the relevance of geographically pivotal states. Historical context: India's modern strategic trajectory begins with independence from British colonial rule in 1947. Partition created immediate geopolitical tensions by dividing the subcontinent into two sovereign states, India and Pakistan. The partition process produced large-scale population displacement and established enduring territorial disputes. The most significant dispute emerged over the region of Kashmir, which remains contested even today. Colonial administrative structures influenced institutional development within India. Legal systems, civil service frameworks, and political institutions developed under colonial rule continue to shape governance capacity. Post-independence leadership pursued politics of non-alignment, attempting to maintain strategic autonomy during the Cold War. Non-alignment allowed India to avoid formal military alliances while maintaining diplomatic flexibility. Despite this approach, regional conflicts persisted, shaping India's security priorities. Historical conflict patterns contributed to military modernization efforts and strategic planning adjustments. Geopolitical environment. India operates within a complex network security structure characterized by multiple strategic pressures. Both Pakistan and China possesses nuclear weapons capability, creating deterrence dynamics that influence military decision making. Territorial dispute exists along western and northern borders. Border disputes with China involve high altitude regions that create logistical and operational challenges. Maritime competition in the Indian Ocean introduces additional strategic considerations. The Indian Ocean serves as a major transit route for global energy transportation. States capable of influencing maritime security gain leverage over international trade flows. India must therefore allocate resources across multiple domains simultaneously, balancing continental defense requirements with maritime capability expansion creates strategic trade-offs. These structures pressure influence These structural pressures influence long-term military planning and resource allocation decisions. The Kashmir conflict represents one of the most persistent geopolitical disputes in modern history. The conflict originated during partition when competing claims emerged regarding territorial sovereignty. Multiple military confrontations have occurred between Pakistan and India related to Kashmir. This region holds both systematic and strategic importance. Symbolically, Kashmir represents issues of national identity, territorial legitimacy, strategic control of territory, influences border security, and regional influence. Insurgency dynamics within Kashmir create long ongoing security challenges. Militarization of the region increases risk of escalation between two nuclear armed states. International actors often avoid direct involvement due to the complexity of this dispute. The persistence of the Kashmir issue demonstrates how unresolved territorial disputes can function as long-term structural constraints on development and cooperation. Sources of regional conflict. Regional instability is produced by multiple reinforcing variables. Nationalism influences domestic political narratives and shapes foreign policy positions. Religious identity interacts with political mobilization processes, sometimes intensifying social divisions. Territorial sovereignty disputes produce zero sum strategic calculations. Leadership decisions can either escalate tension or create opportunities for negotiation. Domestic political incentives sometimes encourage hardline foreign policy positions. Geopolitical grievances influence public perception and policy legitimacy. These interacting factors create persistent tension patterns within South Asia. Understanding these drivers are necessary for evaluating long-term regional stability. Indo-US strategic relations. Relations between India and the United States have evolved significantly over recent decades. During the Cold War, differing strategic priorities, limited cooperation, post-Cold War strategic recalibration created opportunities for increased alignment. The United States increasingly views India as an important strategic partner in maintaining balance within Asia. India's democratic political system and market-oriented economic reforms create area of policy compatibility. Strategic cooperation includes defense agreements, technological collaboration, and trade partnerships. India's strategic position allows it to function as a counterbalance actor within the Indo-Pacific region. Strengthening Indo-US relations supports broader objectives related to stability, trade expansion, and security cooperation. External partnerships can accelerate capability development and increase diplomatic influence. US strategic policy options. Policy approaches emphasizes maintaining regional stability while avoiding direct entanglement in Indo-Pak conflict dynamics. Encouraging economic liberalization supports India's long-term growth trajectory. Economic integration increases interdependence, which may reduce incentives for conflict escalation. Promoting nuclear restraint reduces risk associated with deterrence instability. Strategic engagement allows the United States to influence regional balance without excessive resource commitment. External actors often seek to shape regional instability through direct influence mechanisms. Policy designs must consider unintended consequences of intervention. Balancing engagement with strategic autonomy requires a core challenge in international relations. Indian Navy deployment. Naval capability development plays a central role in India's long-term strategic planning. Blue water naval capability allows states to operate across open ocean environments beyond coastal defense zones. Maritime capability enables protection of trading routes and energy supply chains. The Indian Ocean represents a critical domain for economic security, naval modernization programs including expansion of aircraft carrier capability and submarine fleets. Power projection capability increases diplomatic leverage and deterrence credibility. However, modernization requires significant financial investment. Defense allocation constraints limit the speed of capability expansion. Technological development requires sustained research and industrial capacity. Despite these limitations, maritime capability contributes to long-term strategic positioning. Naval deployment also carries symbolic importance in demonstrating national capabilities. China, strategic variable plus economy plus strength. China represents one of the most significant external variables influencing India's strategic trajectory. Both countries compete for regional influences across economic, military, and diplomatic dimensions. China's rapid industrial growth has significantly increased global economic integration. India has implemented economic reforms to increase competitiveness. Demographic scale proves long-term labor force potential. Geographic location allows influence over major trade corridors. However, structural inefficiencies create constraints on rapid transformations. Competing between India and China influences alliance formation and regional policy decisions. Strategic balancing behavior often shapes regional security arrangements. Future Indo-Pakistan dynamics will likely be influenced by interaction between these two major states. Structural constraints. Structural constraints influence the pace of India's transformation into global power. Development disparities create uneven distribution of economic resources. Infrastructure limitations affect industrial productivity and logistical efficiency. Budget constraints limit defense modernization capacity. Internal insurgents require allocation of security resources. Geopolitical friction with neighboring states complicates diplomatic engagement. Institutional capacity influences implementation of long-term policy objectives. Despite these limitations, India demonstrates characteristics consistent with an emerging regional hegemon. Strategic swing states influence balance of power between major powers. India's trajectory suggests gradual expansion of influence within a multipolar international system. Slide 13. Conclusion. India demonstrates multiple indicators associated with emerging great power status. Economic reform has increased growth potential. Military modernization has improved strategic capacity. Geographic positioning improves leverage within global trade networks. Institutional continuity contributes to political stability. However, structural constraints slow the pace of transformation. India is unlikely to achieve rapid dominance comparable to historical superpowers. Instead, India is expected to function as a major regional actor with increasing global influence. The international system is transitioning towards multipolar distribution of power. Within this structure, India represents a significant participant, shaping long-term strategic outcomes. Future influence will depend on sustained economic development, technological innovation, and geopolitical stability.